Thanks everyone for sticking around. This is kind of an oddball talk, but hopefully this community can think about maybe some potential experiments that we could do when we get to Reiner Gamma. So if you were here on the first day, you would have heard David Blewett talk about this mission in general. So I cut out a lot of the background slides, but in case you missed it, I'll give like a very quick briefing to what Lunar Vertex is. So Lunar Vertex is the first PRISM mission that was selected, and it's going to be launching later this year to go to Reiner Gamma. So Reiner Gamma is one of these lunar swirls where there's association with a magnetic environment, and we have these really beautiful, intricate markings on the lunar surface that we're not entirely sure how they formed. So the swirls themselves, we have a lot of questions about. I mean, the magnetic anomalies, we have questions about how they formed. But then once the magnetic anomaly was in place, or while it was in place, somehow we got this albedo marking, these albedo markings, which are most prominent to the eye visually when you look at them in a basaltic area. But we also have a lot in the highlands, and we can see those when we look at different wavelengths of light. For instance, when you're looking at the water band, the hydration band, or some of the longer wavelength bands, these really pop out in the things where you don't have as much of an albedo difference. So something is going on, maybe changing the space weathering environment, maybe changing the dust environment at these swirls, and we'd like to investigate that. So the mission itself is going to look at the character of the magnetic environment. So we'll have magnetometer on the lander and a magnetometer on the rover. I'm going to focus on the rover in particular and what we're doing across the swirl. But again, if you missed the talk earlier this week, we will be characterizing that magnetic environment and the changes in the magnetic environment as you drive across the swirl. So there's a handful of hypotheses about how the actual markings on the swirls formed. Some have put forward that perhaps the surface was scoured in impacts, either cometary or meteoroid swarms, kind of went across the surface and scoured things in irregular patterns. It's also been hypothesized that maybe we're getting solar wind shielding, so the magnetic anomaly is there, causing a deflection of the solar wind. So you've got intense space weathering where the solar wind is being focused, and less space weathering where it's being shielded. And then another one, which I think is most applicable to this session, is whether we might be getting dust migration or some kind of magnetic sorting because of these electric fields. So there's three missions, three major objectives for the, man, the lights really are crazy bright. It's like until you're here, it's hard to believe it. Yeah, so, how did these form? How did the magnetic anomalies form? How did the swirls themselves form? And then what's the structure of the little mini magnetospheres over within Reiner Gamma? So we're going to be landing approximately there, which is on the swirl, so on the one of the bright regions, and then we're going to drive towards one of these dark regions to try to get an idea of what's going on there. So the rover itself is this cute little rover built by a lunar outpost, and this, as the first PRISM mission, the cost cap was very, very low. So this is like a 20th of what a discovery mission costs. And we had to buy the rover ourselves. So there's a lot of science packed into this little rover and the lander that goes with it. So we'll have a magnetometer on top there. And what I'm going to be focusing on is the Rover Multi-Spectral Microscope, which is a camera built by Canadensis that has, so like kind of a off-the-shelf camera that they've flown in space regularly. And then an LED board that illuminates the surface at different wavelengths to understand the composition of the character and the character of the soil at a microscopic scale. So we're really focusing on what is the texture of that regolith and, like I said, the composition. The rover, the RMM instrument is mounted in the belly of the rover, so we don't have an articulating arm or anything like that. We're just relying on the fact that as we drive, we'll be looking down at the surface and we're shadowing the surface. That way we can get the multispectral measurements that we need. So I'm probably talking more than I expected to, even though I don't have that many slides. So I'll keep it moving, and then we can talk about it later at the end if folks have questions. So in setting our requirements, we want to characterize kind of like the maturity and the composition of the soil as we're on the swirl and off the swirl. The data on the right-hand side here are data from Apollo 15, an Apollo 15 soil measured in the lab, and Apollo 12 soil measured in the lab. And the bands there are where the LEDs emit their light. And the width of those is the width of the emission from those spectral channels. So we chose them to basically get at this mafic band, which is at the end as you go in towards 1 micron, and then to get at the visible slope. So we're going to look at the brightness from site to site, and then we want to characterize the visible slope and the infrared slope. So we really only require three LEDs, but by having the 5, we can get a little better sense of the curvature, and we can also just like account for if some of them are not performing quite as well as we hope and whatnot. So that's what drove the selection of the wavelengths. And then the spatial scale was driven by the fact that we want to be able to see, distinguished dust. We won't see individual dust particles because we have a 30 micron per pixel scale, but we will see clumps of dust. We will see individual little grains, or we'll see if it's very, very smooth, right? So if it's just solid dust, you're going to have a very smooth, uniform surface. And I do want to point out that figure there was, as we were setting requirements, that was a binocular microscope image. The actual instrument will be in better focus than that because we required a depth of field that would give you like a centimeter. So some of those little pebbly things that are out of focus in this image would not be out of focus on the lunar surface. What we're going to be looking at to test these different things is basically that texture of the regolith. So do we see like a lot of porosity, something that looks like fairy castle structure on the swirl? Do we see it not on the swirl? Do we see it both? So it's kind of like a yes-no for these in our truth table. And do we see agglutinate formation? Are the agglutinates dark like we expect them to be with nanophase iron forming them? Do they look, the character of them, is it similar to what we've seen in the samples that have been measured, or are they just kind of glassy but without that iron metal forming, which would suggest that by deflecting the solar wind, you're not actually pulling the iron out of your minerals into the rims and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead to the next slide so you get to see some of the pretty pictures of the actual instrument. So it's a super cute, just like the Rover's cute, the instrument is cute. It's like the size of a soda can. So I put my water bottle for scale there with a 3D printed image of it, but that's the actual instrument. And then the LED board has 2 LEDs per wavelength. So, and they're across from each other. And that makes kind of like this little eyeball shape on the target. And we're focusing on, so because it's each set of LEDs goes around in a circle, each eyeball, your eyeball moves with what wavelength you're looking at. So that center area there, which is what, and this is actually the flight spare, is imaging some lunar simulant here that's been sieved. That inner portion is very uniformly lit. So that's where we're focusing on to get the spectral data. So, I could talk a little bit more. No, all right, no, I'm not going to. Yeah, so anyway, we're ready to go. We've been working on calibrating this. We're doing simulations for operations on the lunar surface because, if we launch in December, we're going to be there very quickly, and we're going to get right to business. We've got, up to 2 weeks of time. We'll land shortly after dawn, and then do our work up through noon. As Dave mentioned, we might have to take a little siesta when it gets hot at noon. And then resume. And we're looking forward to providing lots of good data. So for this community, think about, even though we're looking at the science of it, are there tests that might help you enable the work that you're doing that we could do by looking at the dust and the particles as we traverse something that's got this unique magnetic environment? Because this is a chance to go to a natural laboratory on the lunar surface itself. So please think about that. And if you've got ideas, let me know in the questions. All right, thanks.
I think we have time for one quick question. If anyone has one, can come up.
Rachel,
yes.
How is your landing plume going to affect the swirl?
So we have to drive outside of our plume basically, right? So we're gonna look at the blast zone. It's unknown, right? How it may compress it. It's probably gonna blast a lot of that off. So the first thing we need to do, we're gonna measure what it looks like within the blast zone, and then we're gonna drive off of that and take another measurement there. So it would probably, it's going to collapse any fairy castle structure, presumably, and, scour off any kind of weathering. So it's once we get outside of that we'll really be able to look at the swirl properties themselves.